What served us well at Campus Store is that we always take the presumption that if somebody's performance is sort of off of a benchmark or not where we thought it would be, the first place we look is something going on in their life that we don't know about. We don't jump to some conclusion that, oh, they're suddenly a poor performer. Hi, I'm Steve, CEO of Campus Store, and this is a video series about managing our companies when the world around them is falling apart. And this specific subpart is about how to help your employees feel safe and supported during this pandemic and when they're working remotely. So the very first thing I think that we can do when you're trying to make sure your employees feel safe and supported is asking them, how are you? What's going on? Promise the first time you get no answer. But now I find I'll ask and I'll volunteer. Man, today's a tough day. Mondays feel worse when I'm working remotely than when I'm not. I'm struggling with this today. This is a pain in the neck, mostly personal stuff. And you find that they're willing to reciprocate and share. I think what's been fascinating for me is the answers, is hearing back from our employees some of the things that are going on for them right now. You'll find this if you ask. You'll have employees who, not surprisingly, are struggling with trying to teach their children at home while their children are schooling at home. You have employees who are, they might live by themselves. They might not be getting out as much. They're struggling for human interaction. They might have had a spouse or somebody else get stricken with the virus. They might have somebody else lose their job. We at Campus Store, and I'm proud that I know, but I feel bad for these employees and we've tried to help, is so many of them have a spouse who's had an interruption in their income. We've also learned a lot about what their at-home working situation is like. What served us well at Campus Store is that we always take the presumption that if somebody's performance is sort of off of a benchmark or not where we thought it would be, the first place we look is something going on in their life that we don't know about. We don't jump to some conclusion that, oh, they're suddenly a poor performer. And I would say in 95% of cases, we find it to be validated that sure enough, there is something going on. And of course, there are easier, base hits there where somebody's got a hardware issue. So we're learning about people that have poor Wi-Fi signal, poor equipment, and we've actually had to juggle some duties and say, look, you get really spotty cell phone reception from your location, so this task that's super time sensitive at these times a day probably won't work for you, but maybe you can take on another task and we'll shift the task that you could struggle with because of poor connectivity to somebody that's got really great connectivity. When employees are worried about how they're doing and how the company's doing, we've tried to meet them there with information. We have ramped up our frequency of giving performance feedback to employees. Gone are the days of let's have your performance review in December and decide if you're getting a raise next year. Now there's a much more consistent feedback stream, and we're trying to take away any worry on the employee's part that their employment ends any way in jeopardy because they're not, sort of at their best. And then everybody's second worry is how's the company? We try to talk to employees really directly. We'll show budget numbers. We projected to be here, we're doing this much better. We projected this on expense, this is where we are. We're chasing this client deal, we won this one, we lost that one. On one hand, it helps us be transparent and make employees worry less about the company and how it's doing. And on the other hand, it also builds a lot of trust with employees. So again, a big part I think of making employees feel safe and supported is figuring out what's going on with them. They all have something. Helping where you can without being intrusive, being thoughtful about what you do, and wherever possible, give them time. I think even though we think as leaders that time is more abundant now, I actually think you might find if you ask that it's less abundant, and giving that to employees gives them peace of mind, flexibility, and I find that they're much more productive when they come back. So again, I think the key to really keeping employees feeling safe and supported at work is understanding them, being really transparent to them to the extent transparent with them to the extent you can, and then giving them back things that are valuable to them and that you can afford, especially something like time.